Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I got a gray shirt on today. Yeah, I got the plunging neckline shirt on today, folks. All right. Let me just start. I'm going to start off today's show. I'm going to thank a loyal listener, a loyal viewer of the show, my man Ari, St. Louis Cardinals fan, because the St. Louis Cardinals helped the Phillies tremendously last night, because it's because of those St. Louis Cardinals that the Philadelphia Phillies are not only half game up on the Milwaukee Brewers. They took it to the Brewers last night for a 6-2 victory. The Cardinals did. God bless them. Thank you, St. Louis Cardinals. Thanks, Ari. Appreciate your well wishes, your kind words on the show as always. And also following yesterday's guest, Thomas Peterson. But thank you, and thank you, St. Louis Cardinals, for beating up on the Brewers yesterday so the Phillies can remain a game and a half up. This isn't the way I wanted these last 10 games to go. So they're 0-1 on their last 10 games of the season. 0-1. Not exactly how I wanted it to start out. Zack Wheeler was amazing. They completely wasted Wheeler's outing. It was amazing how well Zack Wheeler was pitching yesterday. It was incredible. It was video game beginner level where you're pitching against a computer and you're just like striking out people and you're like 5 pitches after 5 innings. Like, it's insane. His pitch count was off the charts. We'll get into it. But and the Phillies just did no offense. Nick Castellanos came back yesterday. He got a hit for you. That was nice. I know some people are criticizing his play in right field. I thought he played fine in right field. He got to a ball quickly that could have easily turned into a double. He made the batter change his mind on that play. He fumbled. He dropped that ball in football mode already. Dropped that ball in right field. The winning run would have scored anyway. There was 2 outs, so there's not much you were going to do on that. And plus, I don't expect Nick Castellanos to all of a sudden come back and be an amazing fielder. Like, I don't think he went on the IL stint and learned how to field or became faster by any means with his mild oblique strain. But I thought he overall played well yesterday. Like I said, he was one of the few Phillies that get a hit for you. Bryce Harper got 2 hits for you. That was great. But overall, it was like whenever Zack Wheeler needed a double play, he got a double play. It seemed like whenever Marcus Stroman needed a double play, he also got a double play. Hell, when the Cubs pitching staff, whenever they needed a double play, they got their double play. Reese Hoskins double play in the 8th inning, I believe it was. That was that kind of hurt. That stung just a little bit. But this whole Phillies team just disappointed me last night. This isn't the way I wanted them to start their 10-game road trip. This isn't the way anyone wanted to start their 10-game road trip. The most optimistic way to look at it is a very fact of the matter way, a very matter-of-fact way, I should say. And that is the fact that they still, even if they lose and the Brewers lose, it's a win for the Phillies because it gets them closer and closer to the finish line. You would like that finish line by the time they get to that Houston Astros series. You would like that finish line by the time you get there to have a much bigger gap between you and the Brewers. And last night obviously did not help that. Here's what we get into. Oh, we'll get into the Phillies today. We obviously got some Eagles conversation to get into. Jeff McClain wrote an interesting article where he hinted at the idea of Jalen Hurts' contract extension coming early, coming this season, question mark. We'll get into that conversation today. And the 76ers are at camp in the Carolinas, where James Harden did an interview on SiriusXM that I found to be very interesting, including one very interesting nugget that he dropped in about possibly returning to MVP form. Last year, Joel Embiid came out and said that James Harden is not that MVP guy that he was when he was in Houston. I agree with that. He goes to Brooklyn. James Harden acknowledged, you can choose to believe him or not believe him, but he said that Brooklyn was his second choice. His first choice was coming to Philadelphia. That didn't happen. He went to Brooklyn. Now he's in Philadelphia. Could it be that he just being in the place that he wanted to be from get-go when he wasn't in Houston and was over in Houston? Could it be that it was just a matter of finding the right fit for him in order to take his talent seriously again, in order to take his chances of winning an NBA title again and take them a little bit more seriously as well? Could that be it? Because that's kind of what I'm banking on. Now, yesterday I said when it came to media day, I'll pass on that. No, thank you. I will pass on that one, man. I We've heard everything from the Sixers team, and it's like I said before, it's like being a parent and you're looking at the kid and you're just like, stop. I don't want to hear that you're sorry. Show me that you're sorry. It's one of those deals. And although I don't think the Sixers need to be as remorseful as a toddler by any means, but I think it's more along the lines of something where they just need to go out there and prove that they're as good as the hype that has surrounded them. And they're not only that, but also as good as waiting 4 years for basketball to be relevant again in Philadelphia in terms of going through the process and then justifying it with at least give me a championship appearance. Give me maybe a couple NBA Finals appearances. But at least right now, this season, give me a Finals appearance. That's what I'm looking at. So James Harden goes out there yesterday, and he talks about the conditioning he's been doing, the weight loss program that he's been on. And no, literally, it wasn't 100 pounds, but the man is looking svelte. And we'll get into his comments on the show today. But let's start. Oh, and one more thing. Fletcher Cox and the way he started this season. Jonathan Gannon, during his press conference, made two interesting points. One was about the one-on-one battles and the defensive line just owning it. And then the other was Fletcher Cox's turnaround. And Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philly asked an interesting question at the press conference yesterday, where he talked about how Fletcher Cox had a sort of a turnaround from last year to this year. And after that Raiders game where Fletcher Cox was talking about how it wasn't his job to talk to the defensive coordinator, well, it seems like it's his job now, because this defensive coordinator, not that I ever think he wasn't believing in Fletcher Cox, but it seems like now Fletcher Cox, and whatever come to Jesus moment he had with Jonathan Gannon, he's buying in now. And the way Fletcher Cox has started off this season is the way we have always wanted to see him start off seasons. Not a slow build, not injured, a guy that is just ready to go out there and dominate. And so far, through 3 games, and even goes beyond the sack, right? He's got 3 of them on the season already, but it even goes beyond just getting after the quarterback. It's the disruption that he's causing in the middle of the line of scrimmage, which is exactly what you want from a guy like Fletcher Cox. So we'll get into that conversation as well today. But let's start it off with a deep dive on the Philadelphia Phillies. I was amazed by what you got from Zack Wheeler, and I referenced his pitch total yesterday. He threw 64 pitches. 43 were for strikes. Through 4 innings, he had thrown 27 pitches. 20 of them were for strikes. This game sped by yesterday. It sped by yesterday. And it was all because, Marcus Stroman was keeping the Phillies off balance on his side of the ball. And then it also has to do with Zack Wheeler keeping the Cubs off balance. It was a 2-hour and 15-minute game. And last night, Zack Wheeler just looked like a guy who could hum that fastball in there at 96 miles per hour, 97 miles per hour. He looked like the old Zack Wheeler. In the 6th inning, you could tell he started to struggle a little bit. Pitches started to elevate a little bit more than I think we're used to seeing from him. Things kind of flattened out at times where he was looking to rely on his breaking pitches. They weren't breaking as much, but still, he was able to get double plays and get out of innings when he needed to get out of those innings. Same thing could be said for the other side of the dugout, the other side of the field. When it comes to what Marcus Stroman was doing, he went one more inning than Zack Wheeler did, and he threw 97 pitches as opposed to the 62 Zack Wheeler threw his 6 innings of work. But the Phillies just weren't able to get the clutch hits last night. I mean, throughout the ballgame, they weren't able to get the clutch hits. And you saw Bryce Harper step to the plate, get you a couple of big base knocks, and really do something that I think hopefully is a sign of Bryce Harper really starting to turn it on in terms of carrying this team. Because that was the thought that was rattling around in my brain last night while I was watching this team struggle and stay off balance throughout the game and not be able to knock runs home and all that stuff. Just get the one run on the RBI from Bryce Harper. You're going to need somebody to step up and be the guy to carry this team for 9 games. If they want to solidify and make us all feel comfortable by the time they go into that series against the Astros. Now, they got Aaron Nola on the hill tonight, so hopefully that equals out to a win. But if you're going to really feel comfortable over these next 9 games, you're going to need to know that somebody in this lineup is producing. JT Realmuto has been red hot. He got another hit for you last night. But Bryce Harper, when you look at what he's been able to bring to the table so far, he has been a guy, especially last year in September, where he has carried this ball club. Last year, didn't have enough support to carry them into the playoffs. This year, especially with Nick Castellanos coming back, you're going to be filling out that lineup rather nicely. So why not make that push and have Bryce Harper be the guy to carry this team? 2 hits last night. Hey, it's nice, especially when you look at an offense that wasn't doing anything. But 2 hits last night hopefully is a sign that maybe some power numbers are right around the corner for Bryce, because ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. That way you can just look at the instant offense you should get from a guy like Bryce Harper as opposed to waiting. Oh, okay, it's 1 out. Oh, he just got a single. Oh, all right, it's 2 outs now. Oh, he just got another single. Runners at the corners. Bryce Harper. Oh, a little bloop single. All right, great. The manufacture runs. That's nice. Last night you were able to do that. With Bryce Harper, you should be getting some instant offense. And while I have grown impatient already through 1 game, I know it sounds crazy, but through 1 game with a team that is a game and a half behind you right now in the playoff standings for the 3rd and final wild card spot in the Milwaukee Brewers, well, they got a nice cake schedule going forward. You got to deal, yes, 4 games with the Washington Nationals, but you still have to round out your season, with a 3-game series in Houston. So time's a ticking. And I know if both teams lose, it's more of a win for the Phillies than it is the Brewers, of course, because the window is shrinking for their opportunity to make up a game and a half on the Phils. But I don't want to play a waiting game. I don't want to wait to just see the Brewers out-fail the Phillies. I want to see the Phillies take control of their destiny, which is making the playoffs this year. And a 2-1 loss to start on a 10-game road trip is not how you do that. This is where, hey, look, Zack Wheeler, you came back. You pitched phenomenally well yesterday. Good on you. This is where I need JT Realmuto to go out there, continue his hot streak. He had the hit last night. Great. Bryce Harper, give me power. Please. Instant offense. That way I don't got to worry about, well, what do they do with runners in scoring position? Well, who cares? The guy was on first and Bryce Harper hit a home run. That's 2 runs right there. Like, that's where I'm at. Kyle Schwarber. He has been instant offense for you all year, 40-plus home runs. Beaut. Let's get a little of that, a little more of it over the last now 9 games of the season. Drew a walk last night. They grounded in a double play. I've been saying it. I just want playoff baseball. I want the Phillies to play in the playoffs. I want the Phillies to play in the postseason. For those that have forgotten, for those Phillies fans that have forgotten, postseason is a reference to what happens after a regular season when they play in something called the playoffs. And I felt like I rarely feel bad like for pitchers, but like Zack Wheeler coming off the IL and all that stuff, like I felt bad for him last night. He was pitching his guts out. And he was extremely efficient. It was like a Roy Halladay type start where it was just every pitch was in the zone. He was just hammering the strike zone. And I remember Roy Halladay talking about how hard it is to throw a baseball from 60 feet, 6 inches, right, away and like basically throw it into a shoebox. Like that's what Zack Wheeler was doing last night on a consistent basis, and this offense couldn't help him out a lick last night. So like I said, Aaron Nola on the hill tonight. Hopefully that turns around. That'd be nice. That'd be nice to see. Something else about this Phillies team. Looking at Rhys Hoskins, who went 0 for 4 last night, took the collar. Rhys had been hot from the plate, and he had been through a little bit of time here carrying the team. September has cooled off a little bit for Rhys. And it's not just the batting average, because we all know Rhys isn't a batting average guy. Like, I'd love to see him hit 275, 280, whatever it might be. But the on-base percentage is where it's been at for Rhys Hoskins really throughout his major league career. Only an on-base percentage now of 299 in the month of September. And for those that have forgotten, it's September 28th already. All right? It's September 28th. It's not early in September anymore. Rhys is not exactly having a great September. And I'd like to see him be able to raise those numbers to what we're used to seeing, the 350 on-base percentage, something like that, trying to help his ball club win. That's what I would like to see from Rhys Hoskins. And if that could start in the not-too-distant future, like today, that'd be great. By the way, another 7:40 start time tonight for the Phillies and the Cubs as they play Game 2 of this 3-game series. This was interesting to me. A big conversation is about to be had, and it's already started. And Jeff McClain of the Inquirer.com pointed this out. And I found this very interesting. Take a look at this. This is an excerpt from his article yesterday on Inquirer.com. Owner Jeffrey Lurie. Now, he's not crediting sources. I want to, for context, I don't want to say like per source. Jeff McClain's not saying per sources. They're in the lab right now working on a contract. But he's saying basically the hamster's on the wheel and it's starting to go around. So he's saying owner Jeffrey Lurie and general manager Howie Roseman are very much attuned to quarterback play. And while Nick Sirianni is bogged down in daily operations of coaching, they are certainly starting to formulate a plan for giving Hurts an extension early. The Eagles have long benefited in getting out in front of contract situations. Is that what goes on? That's what goes on to say. Now, that didn't work out so well when it came to Carson Wentz and $128 million. No, that didn't work out so well. But it is a page out of the Joe Banner School of Contracts that Howie Roseman still very much practices and Jeffrey Lurie still very much respects. Young guy playing well. Maybe you can get him for cheap. As some former players that I've talked to over the years have said, it's the carrot. You dangle that carrot out in front of a player with guaranteed money early on. Are they going to bet on themselves? Or are they going to sign what is ultimately going to be a team-friendly contract? I think Jalen Hurts signs. Now, if Jalen Hurts bets on himself, I give him all the credit in the world for doing it. But I don't think that the Eagles are going to come to Jalen Hurts with a $230.5 million deal over 5 years like Kyler Murray got that clips off at about $46 million a year. I don't see the Eagles doing that. If the Eagles, first off, Jalen Hurts continues to play the way that he's been playing to this point in the season, which is third in the league in passing, first in the league in passing yards per attempt, top 10 in completion percentage, top 10 in terms of touchdowns scored, whether it's been passing or rushing. If he's basically being your offense, and he's in the top 10 in completion percentage is what blows my mind. I believe he's 9th in the NFL. That's pretty impressive. So when you look at what he's been able to do so far this season, it's been pretty damn good. He is in the MVP conversation. I think even though Josh Allen's team is the Buffalo Bills took a little bit of a hit yesterday, or Sunday, I should say, against the Miami Dolphins, and Josh Allen just absolutely choked with a ball that should have been in the end zone. He is definitely in the MVP conversation. Jalen Hurts is. So if he's already in that conversation, you best well believe they're in the front office at the NovaCare complex talking about what kind of money and what kind of years they're going to be given to Jalen Hurts. So if Jalen Hurts continues to play as he has played this season, I don't think he signs a deal early. Now, that might be a kiss of death, but if he's playing early, if he's playing well, and you're the Philadelphia Eagles, and you think right now you got your franchise quarterback, then he's going to be worth the wait. He's going to be worth the wait for a couple of reasons. One, you get yourself a franchise quarterback. Two, you know you're not going to be using those first-round picks on a quarterback. You could use that to address another situation. That's where I think the Eagles are going to end up going, using those first-round picks to address more defense, address maybe another weapon offensively, whatever it might be. That's where the Eagles, I think, end up spending. And as I've been saying, even through the offseason, I see the groundwork there for Jalen Hurts to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future. And so far, through 3 games this season, you have seen the work in the offseason pay off. You have seen someone that you want to invest your money in if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't fault the Eagles if they're already starting to put pen to paper to start, as Jeff McClain says, formulate a contract for Jalen Hurts. I would very much doubt if the Eagles were up there in the NovaCare complex and they're going, all right, well, Jalen looks great. So $230 million. Let's start with that. Kyler Murray money. Let's start with $230 million and then see where we go from there. I doubt that. And it's a 5-year deal that Murray signed. Like I said, it's $46 million a year. I don't think they're starting there. I think they're starting more around the Carson Wentz range of about $128 million. That sounds way too precise, but about $130 million is where I would go for what the Eagles are thinking about right now. And if you're Jalen Hurts, do you jump at that opportunity and say, oh, absolutely, sign me up, and then say, all right, no, I'm going to make some big money in my next contract? Or if they come up to you, let's say in week 10, and you're playing well, and let's say you're you're 8-2 or whatever. The Eagles have a bye week coming up in October. But if you're riding high, do you say, oh, yeah, pen to paper, let's sign? Or do you say, you know what? I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to bet that I'm at least going to win the division as your starting quarterback. And after that, I'm going to go into the postseason. I'm going to win you a playoff game at least. Oh, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to stay in the MVP conversation for the rest of the year. So you're going to try to get me at bargain low prices. And I don't fault for the Eagles. That's don't fault the Eagles, man. That's good business. That's business, right? But it's also good business if Jalen Hurts says, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to bet on myself and go sign it. Now, the biggest caveat of this, I don't see Jalen Hurts hitting some kind of crazy regression as the season goes on. But what's always out there, especially if you're Jalen Hurts, especially if there's only one quarterback in the NFL that has rushed more than you or has more rushing touchdowns than you. And I think Jalen Hurts actually has 4 rushing touchdowns, and I think Lamar Jackson has 3. But the bottom line is, if there's only one quarterback in the NFL that rushes more than you, and that's Lamar Jackson, that means you're out there a lot. That means and I know he plays smart. He gets rid of the football, doesn't take bad sacks. He slides, he gets out of bounds. He plays smart football. But bottom line is, he plays a much more physical quarterback position than the average quarterback plays that position. So his style of play might make him take less money if that dangled carrot is put out in front of him. Oh, yeah, you want to bet on yourself? Okay. Let's maybe stay in the pocket a little bit more than normal then. Maybe you're getting rid of that football a little quicker. Maybe if you're Jalen Hurts, you are signing that deal. I wouldn't look, if he doesn't sign the deal, if they do offer him something to try to get ahead of it, and it's a little bit of a low ball offer, but it's guaranteed money, still over $100 million, $100 million, that's going to be hard for a guy like Jalen Hurts to turn down. I can see both sides, is what I'm saying. If I'm the Eagles, I am absolutely trying to get out in front of this. If you're asking me for my prediction, I think Jalen Hurts does not sign that big dog money. Or excuse me, that big contract, that first attempt at the contract. I think he waits to get that big dog money at the end of the season. We've seen it happen. The number one guy that is the perfect example is Joe Flacco. Before he won the Super Bowl, they offered him a contract. He said, no, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to wait on that. He goes and wins a Super Bowl. And then he signed a contract for over $100 million, and then he went to McDonald's and got chicken nuggets. I'm not kidding. That's what happened. Huge, ginormous contract, and then he went, the first thing he got was chicken nuggets. I'll never forget that. That is awesome. But I don't think Jalen Hurts signs a deal early. I think he bets on himself. He just seems to be that kind of guy. Although I think the smart play for him, because of his style of play, is to sign any contract that is offered to him. Granted, I think the Eagles are giving him a fair deal. I think, yes, they will try to get a couple of bucks off, a discount, low ball offer, whatever you want to call it. Will it be anything that's not Max's low ball? Okay, let's just put it that way. That's the company trying to get and save as much money as they possibly can. So any money that Jalen Hurts wouldn't take in the initial offer is things that he's going to bet on himself, go to the end of the year. I can understand why Jalen Hurts would turn it down. I can also understand why he'd take it. Bottom line is, though, I don't think he signs an early contract. He seems to me to be the guy that will bet on himself for the end of the year, where he can really cash in on an offer. He might even be the type of guy that says, I don't even want to talk about contracts. The Jalen Hurts move, I think, is he waits to the end of the year. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. It's going to be hard to turn down guaranteed money. Second round pick, all that stuff. We didn't look at him as the guy. We looked at him as a backup. And he is exceeding our expectations. I think Jalen Hurts knows he's in a position right now to be the guy. I mean, anytime you're in the MVP conversation, albeit 3 weeks into the season, you're a young man. You've already been through a lot of rumors. You've already been through a little bit of a quarterback controversy where you came out on top and they traded the other guy that they just signed to a huge contract. Oh, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But to see that little nugget dropped in by Jeff McClain of the Inquirer, I was like, if Jeff's not just throwing that against the wall. He knows the people he's covering. He knows Howie. He knows Jeffrey Lurie. He knows the history of this franchise. and what they like to do when it comes to trying to offer that big money or trying to offer a contract to a guy that they're trying to get out in front of when it comes to that next big contract in the NFL. Oh, how can we save a couple of bucks? Hey, that's how you run a business. I'm going to be interested to see how this whole thing plays out. Now, on the field as of right now, Fletcher Cox has just been playing insane. While we've talked a lot about the defensive backs and we talked about the defensive line coming up with 8 of the 9 sacks that they had against Carson Wentz, and really we've criticized Jonathan Gannon for not being aggressive, and I've pointed out many times this week already, it's only Wednesday, that this defensive line was responsible for getting that pressure without dialing up blitzes, a lot of 4-man rushes. Well, the number one reason for them having so much success, not just Brandon Graham getting 2.5 sacks and Josh Sweat getting 2 sacks, but overall throughout this season, the reason they've been able to get pressure on the quarterback is because of the interior members of the defensive line. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Jordan Davis to a certain extent. Fletcher Cox, for me, is off to his best start in years. And I think a lot of that comes down to finally being healthy. And a lot of that comes down to another year in Jonathan Gannon's system. Maybe a come to Jesus moment with Jonathan Gannon after that Raiders game last year. And that's what Dave Zangaro asked Jonathan Gannon about. In the middle of last season, Fletcher Cox seemed to be at odds with his defensive coordinator, seemed to be at odds with the scheme. I don't get paid to go after the run. I get paid to go after the quarterback. Well, that's what he's getting a little bit more of a license to do this season. At least that's what it seems. Jonathan Gannon was asked about that by NBC Sports Philadelphia's Dave Zangaro, and here is what Jonathan Gannon had to say about his veteran defensive tackle, Fletcher Cox, breaking out this season.
I mean, because he cares. I mean, he's another guy, like, when I talk about Slay, Fletcher's the same way, and that's why he wears a C on his chest. He ultimately wants to do everything that he can do to help our team win. And he knows he's an impact player for us, and he wants to be put in positions that he can impact the game. And I think what you see from Fletch right now is he's playing at a really high level in the run and pass game. And he understands the value of how we align him and deploy him to train wreck the game, which is what he did.
That's Jonathan Gannon after his press conference, or during his press conference yesterday, talking about Fletcher Cox and his turnaround from last year to this year. Yeah, the captaincy is a huge thing, but the thing that I absolutely loved about Jonathan Gannon's comment right there, Fletcher Cox train wrecked the game. I'm going to be working that one in now, because he absolutely did train wreck the game. He's putting guys on roller skates. I mean, even when there wasn't sacks, when there's pressures. And yes, I do think a lot of it was the fact that the offensive line of the Washington the Commanders is terrible. Absolutely terrible. But Fletcher Cox put guys on roller skates throughout that game. If Fletcher Cox wasn't in the backfield, wasn't making pressure, he was pushing a member of the offensive line in Carson Wentz's face. So if it wasn't Fletcher Cox getting the sack, you know who it was? It was a member of the offensive line of the Washington the Commanders. I mean, he just played phenomenal. Another guy that he's saying the praises of yesterday was Nakobe Dean. He told a story about Nakobe Dean talking to Kazir White, and just saying, hey, how did you know if that wasn't your gap? How did you know to go over to this gap? Like, that gap wasn't your assignment on this particular play. How'd you know to go over this other gap? And Kazir White was just like, I felt it. And Nakobe Dean was like, oh, that's cool. So he's not playing. Third round pick. A lot of people thought, myself included, it might have been a first round pick. The Eagles passed him on in the second round. They took a guy who looks like he's going to work out just based on what he's seen him in preseason and Cam Jurgens. And then Nakobe Dean comes out here and he's playing sparingly at most this season. You have guys in front of him right now in White, in TJ Edwards as well, that are just playing great football right now. So it's hard to say, hey guys, take a seat for Nakobe Dean. But apparently he's being a sponge in the meetings, which is great. And then the other thing, and John McMullen of Jacob Media asked Jonathan Gannon this question. This had to do with the one-on-one battles being fought by the defensive line against the offensive line, and not having to dial up blitzes and not having to get exotic in your scheme to try to get after the quarterback, but rather guys winning those one-on-one battles. And this is what Jonathan Gannon had to say about his defensive line and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
There's some things that we had up that we didn't need. And I'm not talking about just pressures or coverages. When the game's going how it's going, again, we have really smart players, and they can adapt as the game goes. And we had a couple things up that the players were like, we don't need that right now, or let's keep rolling with this because we're doing a good job with it. And perfect. I'm not out there playing, they are. So I thought, that you can, when the D-line's affecting the game the way they were, you can devote more into coverage, and it makes it hard for the quarterback. So, again, the players and coaches did a good job of executing and winning at a high level. And again, you guys saw the production stand out, and I know everyone sees that stand out from the box score. But that's why, wasn't really sweating the production in the first couple games, because I knew that at some point, if they keep winning at a high level and doing what they're coached to do, that will come. And that's honestly, that didn't surprise me how that game played out.
All right. I love how the game played out. Anytime we get 9 sacks in a game, everyone's going to be excited. And he's right, the box score this, the box score that. That's wonderful. But my issue is you weren't getting that kind of pressure. And look, I don't expect the Eagles to have another 9-sack game this season. Like, that'd be great. I'd love for that to happen. I just don't see it happening. So in the event where it doesn't happen, in the event where you're not getting that much pressure, in the event where you're not getting in the quarterback's face and rushing him into mistakes, what you gonna do, JG? I know you can sit back and say, oh, I was confident that, guys, I knew I wasn't upset about the box score. I wasn't upset about the fact that we weren't getting sacks. I wasn't upset about that because I knew it was coming. Well, what about the games where it's not coming? What about the games where you're not getting in the quarterback's face? What about the games where you're not forcing those mistakes? What about those games? What are you going to do to change things up? And look, we have seen this season through 2 games, not including this Washington game, because it's crazy. This Washington game, I noticed the least amount of blitzing, the least amount of 5-man rushes, the least amount. And they had 9 sacks. And then through 2 games, I would say through 7 of the 8 quarters, we all know what happened in the fourth quarter of the Lions game, but at least through those quarters, through 7 of 8 quarters, you saw Jonathan Gannon dial up blitzes, send linebackers, send White, send safety blitzes, send corner blitzes. Avonte Maddox coming in from the slot to blitz. You've seen C.D. Deuce come in from the safety position to get into the backfield and try to rush a pass. You have seen that from Jonathan Gannon. You've seen certainly T.J. Edwards and Kazir White get into the backfield. We didn't see any of that last year until the very end of the season. Seth Joyner brought up an interesting point during the Jacob Media pregame show when I had the opportunity to ask him about Jonathan Gannon's defense and whether or not he had seen a little bit of a different page from Jonathan Gannon, him turn a page, turn over a new leaf, whatever. And Seth Joyner said, he'd been waiting for him to be exotic. He had been waiting for him to move some things around. And he finally got the opportunity to do it. They certainly took their foot off the gas in that fourth quarter against the Lions. But for the vast majority of the season, it's been a little bit different. The vast majority of the 3 games, it's been different. So he brought up the idea of Vic Fangio, and that's the name that has come up here. And if you remember when we had Hollis Thomas on the show a few weeks ago, we talked about Vic Fangio as a coach. Well, Vic Fangio is not listed as a coach on the Eagles website. Even a guy like a passing game coordinator like Jim Bob Cooter was listed on the website last year. Vic Fangio, he's a silent partner. He's a consultant. Maybe, and my theory was that he was waiting in the wings. If things hit the fan with Jonathan Gannon, was Vic Fangio going to roll in here and be this team's defensive coordinator? Yes, please. Or is he here just to simply be an advisor and enjoy a year further away from football than being the head coach of an NFL team is? A little further away. But still helping, still consulting. It's possible. I just find it hard to believe that Jonathan Gannon, after being interviewed for head coaching positions, getting consideration in Denver and Houston, I find it hard to believe that all of a sudden, after 1 year as a defensive coordinator and getting head coaching consideration, that he's being pushed out the door. I'd find that hard to believe. Especially when, yes, he was top 10 in yards allowed in terms of fewest yards allowed in the league, and that's great. But I don't look at him and go, oh, hey, this guy's a head coach. Apparently 2 other teams around the NFL at least considered it, maybe 3. But I look at this Vic Fangio consultant role, and I think that maybe it's caught the attention of Jonathan Gannon that he's got somebody that, yeah, right now is a consultant, but they're also available. And if Jonathan Gannon doesn't do things to change the course of a game, like a blitz here and there, not every play, it's not crazy. But if he doesn't do things throughout the course of a game, like he should have maybe last season, then maybe there's going to be another defensive coordinator in here. And I know Nick Sirianni said all the right things about how he believes in Jonathan Gannon, he believes in this defense, the defense is great, and all that stuff. This is a really wild start to the season compared to how the Eagles started the season last year. It's a lot closer to what we saw a year ago at the end of the season in terms of going after the quarterback and sending blitzes and sending your corners or a safety or your linebackers, whatever it might be. That's been a lot different for Jonathan Gannon. I do think the presence of Vic Fangio, whether that be as a defensive assistant, defensive consultant, whatever it might be, I think that the presence of Vic Fangio has had an effect on Jonathan Gannon's play calling, whether that be Vic Fangio actually putting in the idea of different blitz schemes, whatever they might be, blitz packages, or just Jonathan Gannon knowing that there's somebody that's looking over his shoulder. Somebody other than Nick Sirianni, who has spent his career really on the offensive side of the football. I think that might be a little motivating factor for Jonathan Gannon. Bottom line, I don't care. I like how this team is playing defense. I could have gone without the, 14 missed tackles in week 1. Could have gone without that. But in terms of the overall scheme, in terms of the aggression we have seen more so than really ever, even more so than in the last year, I'm here for it. I think it starts in the middle of Fletcher Cox. I think it starts with Javon Hargrave. I think it absolutely starts with scheme. Yes, you were able to win your battles because you played against a terrible defensive line. And you made them look as bad as they should have looked. Good job by the Eagles defensive line. Good job by Jonathan Gannon for knowing that that's what this team could do. And man, boy, do they get home. Now they're going to have another opportunity to do that, hopefully against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock when they take on Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson coming back. I'll tell you this, guys, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get, probably Friday. We're going to really do a game preview and all that. I know free agency and the how big trades are is nothing new. Like, it's not like we all grew up in the 40s and everyone stayed with the same team forever, and it's weird to see a guy in another uniform. Like Jason Peters, believe it or not, seeing him Monday night in a Dallas Cowboys jersey and playing right or left guard for the Dallas Cowboys, I didn't find it weird. I looked at it and I was like, wow, I feel weird that this isn't weird. Like everyone else is so weird. I'm like, that's not weird for me. But you know what is weird for me? I'll tell you what is weird for me. Doug Peterson standing in front of a Jacksonville Jaguars backdrop while doing a press conference talking about his time in Philadelphia. That is weird to me. Because as I've told you guys before, I was right there at the presentation stage in Minnesota when they won the Super Bowl. I was standing right there as confetti was sticking to my bald head. And he's holding that trophy. And I'm like, I can't believe it. And Nick Foles is there, and Carson Wentz is up there, and Howie Roseman is up there, and Kevin Hart's trying to get up there, but he's unsuccessful. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is actually happening. And I'm like, they got the MVP of the Super Bowl standing right there. They got the MVP of the regular season right there. He's going to come back next year and dominate. And Doug Peterson cracked the code on winning a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Howie Roseman put together an amazing team 2 years after Chip Kelly lit a match. And then it was gone. It was all gone. Two years later, it was done. And then Doug Peterson is in Jacksonville after he was technically fired. And this Nick Sirianni fella is in. It's so surreal. And then seeing him in front of that backdrop, I'm just like, this is weirder than anything. This is weirder than Jason Peters wearing a Cowboys helmet. This is weirder than even Carson Wentz with Indianapolis. This is weirder than anything. It's odd. It's very odd. And I was looking at his press conference yesterday, and I was just like, this is so strange. This officially has hit me harder than any athlete wearing another jersey. Like even Chase Utley in a Dodgers uniform, I was like, yeah, that's about right. And plus, by that point, we're like, please, trade whatever we have. Get prospects. get whatever we can for Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, and these guys. Anyway, so that was a little odd. That was an odd thing. Bit of an odd thing. One more thing before we get to our ads and you wonderful people in the chat check. This is what I was referencing earlier with James Harden. So the Sixers are working out in the Carolinas. They're at the Citadel, right? And James Harden had this to say. I've always said that if my conditioning can be level with my skill set, my IQ, and the work I put in, it's MVP. That is when he was asked about if he believes whether or not he can be in MVP form again. Is he back in MVP form? I've always said that in my conditioning, if it can be level with my skill set, my IQ, and the work I put in, it's MVP. I don't think James Harden is ever ripping off 30 points a game. All right? That shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. But I also talked about how Bobby Marks, former GM of the Brooklyn Nets and now ESPN analyst, he talked about it about a month and a half ago that James Harden could be an MVP candidate again. He'll be in the MVP conversation. That was his prediction. If James Harden in this offense, which I don't think is absurd, if James Harden can get you 15 assists a game and let's say 22 points per game, he's going to be in the MVP conversation. And I don't think those numbers are ridiculous to think about. If we're talking about a revamped James Harden, a guy who's in shape, a guy who's invested, and everything that has happened so far this offseason has shown you that he is invested in this franchise, invested in his game, and invested in this team doing incredible things that we haven't seen them do since the days of Allen Iverson, then I don't think it's ridiculous even a little bit to think about James Harden as an MVP candidate. I look at a guy like Tyrese Maxey, and I'm thinking, just score. Get me 25 a game. Joel Embiid, go get me 30. If James Harden can come in here and get you 20 to 22 points per game, oh, damn, that's going to be a hell of an offense. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, Tobias Harris isn't going to be scoring that much. I just don't see him getting the ball as much as he may have in the past. But he can still score the ball and get you maybe 15 a game. PJ Tucker, I think his minutes aren't going to be astronomical, and he's certainly not going to be out there on the floor to score. I know we've talked about the corner three. Optimistically, you can knock that down with some ounce of consistency. But then you're going to have also guys coming off the bench. They're going to be able to help you out as well. You're going to be able to score points on this team, and James Harden is going to be the maestro orchestrating this offense. There's going to be a lot of assists to Joel Embiid. There's going to be a lot of assists, I think, to Tyrese Maxey. And if Tobias Harris does what he did last year in the playoffs, which is be able to get that set shot, catch and release, then I think he's going to have some success as well. And the guy that's going to be starting off every play is James Harden. They will stagger minutes when it comes to point guard between him and Tyrese Maxey, and you'll keep that development with Tyrese Maxey. But bottom line is I think Tyrese Maxey is going to be a scorer. I think Tyrese Maxey is going to be behind Joel Embiid as the second leading scorer for this basketball team. I think James Harden is going to have off-the-charts assist numbers that are just going to wow us night in and night out. If he's able to do that, yeah, you're going to be talking about a guy in the MVP conversation by the end of the year. If he is in shape, and I think he is invested mentally, then you're going to be seeing some good things from the Sixers team. That's one quote that caught my eye from the media sessions that I wasn't really too interested in, and also just talking to SiriusXM about what he plans on doing in the upcoming season. So let's keep our fingers crossed that actually happens. From a schematic standpoint, how about this? Doc Rivers, dare I say Duck Rivers, for those that are new to the show, Duck Rivers is how he was constantly referred to in the chat. Doc Rivers had PJ Tucker running at both the 4 and the 3 yesterday, and he had Tobias Harris running more 3 than 4. So a little change up to get a look at PJ Tucker as the 4. Also got a look at PJ Tucker as the 3. And for the people that are looking for the Paul Reed Victory Tour, rev your engines. Paul Reed was out there playing 4 alongside Joel Embiid as well. What? Oh, Doc getting crazy. Doc getting crazy. By the way, I continue to follow this Ime Udoka story. Ime Udoka story. Ime Udoka story. With me along and whatnot. It's like, I always thought it was weird. There's different reports coming out I always thought it was weird that it was a completely consensual relationship. I shouldn't say completely, but the way it was reported by Woj, for instance, is that it was consensual. There are some rumors out there circulating, and I want to validate them by bringing them up specifically. But I didn't think they were going to be doing all that they did, suspending their head coach for an extramarital affair. They're not the morale police when it comes to how somebody operates in there. And it's not even marital, extra engageable affair because they were engaged, I guess. But man, as I said when it started, there's going to be a lot to this story. And it's fascinating anytime you talk about a scandal of any kind. And we'll continue to follow it. That's what I promise you. Let me tell you about my man Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right here in Philadelphia. Do what I do when it comes to Steven Singer and it comes to jewelers, your jewelry. Trust one man. The man Philadelphia has trusted for over 40 years. Steven Singer has been in the love business for over 40 years in Philadelphia, taking care of the city of brotherly love with his beautiful, dazzling diamond jewelry. You'll get treated like a family member by a real jewelry expert. And at the same time, you know what else? I'll tell you what else. You get the perfect price. Every day at Steven Singer Jewelers, you get the perfect price. So when you walk in, you don't got to worry about negotiating or haggling, or if the person next to you got paid less than you. You're getting the perfect price just as they're getting the perfect place. Perfect price. One place, one price, the perfect price each and every day online at IHateStevenSinger.com. How about Manscaped? Gentlemen, you want to look good everywhere, right? That's where Manscaped comes in with their brand new, biggest ultimate hygiene bundle yet, the Platinum Package 4.0. It includes the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer with all skin-safe technology that helps reduce the risk of nicks, so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. Plus, the ultra-premium body wash 2-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, crop preserver, anti-chafing ball deodorant, crop reviver, ball spray toner, anti-chafing boxers, and the Shed travel bag that you'll be using to hold the goods that you'll be taking care of your goods with from Manscaped. Manscaped, the leader in below-the-waist grooming, and I can trust them with the whole shebang. Join the 4 million men worldwide and trust them with Manscaped. Manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping with promo code Farzy, as it says in the scroll below. 20% off and free shipping with promo code Farzy. How about Freestone Farm CBD? FreestoneFarmCBD.com. I'm sure you've tried other CBD products. Don't waste your time. FreestoneFarmCBD.com is where it's at. Promo code Farzy gets you 20% off there as well. You'll love their Bayox. Their tropical tasting Bayox that clocks into a chart-topping 24.1%. And Super CBD, which is half into Kush. And 21%. Genetics of these guys are off the charts. There's absolutely nothing synthetic from farm to jar. They'll grow all their premium hemp flower in the garden state, and after harvest, they carefully preserve all their plant compounds with a perfect 3-month cure. Like an soprasata. Just one look or smell is enough to let you know it's CBD done right. And it's a great product for anyone looking to take a more natural approach to everything they put in their bodies. And once again, you get 20% off when you use promo code Farzy. And it's fantastic. Let me tell you about Mojo and the Mojo app. Currently offering NFL players. We were just talking about this with Jalen Hurts' contract. He's a stock. That's what he is. The Eagles are looking at it right now. Ooh, can we buy low? And Jalen Hurts looking at it like, how about you sell high? Even though hopefully you don't sell me off to another team and you don't trade me and keep me here. That'd be great. That's where we're at right now. Talking about stocks. That's what the Mojo Marketplace does. Looking at Jalen Hurts right now, stock is high. A.J. Brown, stock high. Devontae Smith, stock very high. Well, the app currently has NFL players, over 300 skilled players across quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. After the first 2 weeks of the season, Miles Sanders' stock, rising. After this one, and not so much. Dips down a little bit. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, check it out at the Mojo app. Each player has a share price that rises and falls in real time based on on-field performance, news, and anything else that might affect expectations. Prices move all year long, so there's no off-season. Mojo's published guaranteed payout formula is based on objective stats, so you always know what exactly the stock is worth. Think of it like an underrated rookie out there. Maybe they're a rising star. Maybe you buy low on them and maybe sell high later and cash out on them. Mojo is available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you can have a chance to win $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Mojo is incredible. Check out mojo.com. Must be 21 or older and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. Have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get into our chat check and see how you beautiful people are doing today. April, what's going on? Kevin, what's going on? Phillies need to get it together. I agree. April, referring to my low cut, my plunging neckline. Yes, spicy Farzy. Do you guys remember the Spice Channel? When we first moved back to this area, April, you did it. You set off my Family Guy brain again. The Spice Channel, Suburban Cable, before Comcast, Suburban Cable would have like this movie preview channel, and it was like Bruce Willis, Sarah Jessica Parker are in Pittsburgh, cruising the rivers, striking distance, rated R. It was like that, and then it was like Alone at Night. It's time for the Spice Channel for just $4.99. And it's like, I'm sorry, what was this? My brother and I are young kids. We're like, what the hell is a Spice Channel? Is it like a cooking show? Anyway, this shirt is my Spice Channel shirt, is what I'm saying. By the way, I had a revelation yesterday. Why do all European soccer coaches look like they just had a extramarital affair with your significant other before they came out to the sideline to coach? Is that just me noticing this? They're all dressed like the bad boy lover in every movie ever. Maybe I had a little too much to drink yesterday. Anyway, on a Tuesday. Mihai Sanchez. No, what I had was too much caffeine yesterday. I really, pots and pans. A lot of caffeine yesterday. Mihai Sanchez, good morning. Mark, everyone, most overrated offense ever. Oh, the Phillies, yeah. Swinging at the first pitch of the ninth inning. Too many chances wasted to lock up a postseason spot. The Brewers doing what they can to help us. Phillies don't make it easy. Sean, you're absolutely right. John Cheeseborough, good morning. John Cheeseborough, got to say this real quick. Starting to think CBS hates Eagles games. Sparrow Deeds, really? And Jay Feely on the call on Sunday? I don't know if I've just learned to tune out announcers or what, but I think I have. Here's me, usually. 90% of the time, I'll hear from somebody else. Do you believe they said that about our guy? And I'm like, said what? The announcer, they said that about our guy. And I'm like, oh, I was watching the game. I didn't hear the oftentimes I'll tune out. Now, if there's something egregious where it's like Tony Romo being way too positive on the Cowboys, where I'm like, all right, Tony, back off. And I think Tony Romo does a great job as I predicted. I think I was the only person to make this prediction, but as I predicted, Tony Romo has gone down in stock. You talking about stocks dropping? Tony Romo has gone down in stock as his career as a broadcaster has gone on. And anyway, I knew as he got further removed from the league, and it happens to a lot of guys, the knowledge isn't as good. But anyway, I don't really care what announcers have to say. I like a play-by-play guy, like a good, solid play-by-play guy. The color analyst can, for me, add more than they take away. That's how I view that. And plus, I've always lived by this motto, and hat tip to the comedian Michael Ian Black, who came up with this comment. And he uses this about more Spice Channel stuff, about exotic dancers. But I apply this to, it's like he would say, going to the gentleman's club and thinking the girl really likes me is the same gene that tells you your children are gifted. Well, I take that and kind of use it in a sports way of thinking the national announcer hates your team is the same impulse as the guy that goes to the strip club and thinks she really likes me. That's how I've always viewed it. And I think Michael Ian Black summed it up well, and I apply it to sports in that way. But yeah, I don't get too into the broadcasters. But that's good information because I know I'm in the minority. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to that. Sean Gillespie, what's going on? John Cheeseborough, no excuses for the Phillies. Breaking news on the black helmets. Okay. Eagles will wear black helmets week 12 versus the Packers, week 16 versus the Cowboys, week 18 versus the Giants. All right, John, there you go. April, I think Jalen Hurts will sign it. Seems he wouldn't want to talk about it all season. That's a good point. Joe Flacco was never the same after those chicken nuggets. Just a thought. Sean Gillespie, excellent point. John Cheeseborough, Mark Sanchez wasn't the same after the hot dog. Mark Sanchez wasn't the same after the butt fumble. That's what I'll say. Here's what I think I know: aggression, more aggression in the second half. I could use that. Jeff, what's going on, Jeff? Money deal. They never win the Super Bowl or anything Super Bowl or another Super Bowl. Rodgers, Wilson. Ooh. Jeff, that's interesting. Bop, bop, boop, beep, bop, bop. Ooh, John Cheeseborough. It's like seeing Harold Carmichael or Randall Cunningham, even Super Bowl hero Corey Clement in the Cowboys uniform. You know, I got to shoot down something. Because there's a story that's gone around about Harold Carmichael about walking by a mirror when he was with the Cowboys and looking at himself in the Cowboys uniform and going, can't do it. And then he retired. I asked Harold Carmichael about that story. By the way, if I've never said this, I love Harold Carmichael. He is one of my favorite people ever. Like, just an awesome guy to talk to. And I've had so many. He always, like, he's just one of those people that you're always like surprised remembers you because he's Harold friggin' Carmichael. And like, I didn't grow up in his era. Like, 83 or 1980 when they went to the Super Bowl. Like, I wasn't even born yet, you know? So, you know, just, and he's like, Mark, how are you? I'm like, oh, thank you, Mr. Carmichael. How are you? But I asked him about that. He was like, yeah, it was a couple of weeks in. I kind of played, you know, got to cash that check. April, unless it's Collinsworth, he actually hates us. Transistor Zen, what's going on? Welcome to the chat. What am I missing here? Transistor Zen. Get tired of Brady's rich wife argument. All NFL quarterbacks get an extension these days is set for life. Whether they get 130 million or 400 million, they could all afford it if they wanted to. All right. Sean Gillespie, Joe Buck's hair will outlive us all, just like Burt Reynolds. I love Joe Buck. Turd Ferguson. This is nice. This is nice. Transistor Zen again. Brady took the discounts because winning was more important than him with an extra $10 million here and there over the years. Don't tell me dude making well over $200 million in his career can't afford to take less. There's a lot of theories about where Tom Brady made that money. And it wasn't just about his NFL career or endorsements either. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are great. Phillies are back at it tonight in our Morning Rush segment brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Let me say this real quick. What do we got? We got Farzy in the field tomorrow. I said we're going to have that today. Some technical difficulties, so we work those out. So I'll be out there today on the streets in Center City talking to some wonderful people and getting their piping hot sports takes and also throwing some Mojo's share market prices at them and seeing if they're going to buy or sell on Jalen Hurts, on Devontae Smith, on Miles Sanders, maybe. We'll get into all that and more today as we go into the city. And also, of course, the Phillies are back at it tonight. I mentioned it earlier, 7:40 start time. Aaron Nola on the hill against the Cubs. Hopefully the Phillies take this middle game of the 3-game set. Hayden Wesneski will get the start for the Cubs. He's 2-1 on the season with a 2.45 ERA. Young right-handed pitcher, 24 years old, and he is just making his what will be his third career start, his 5th game at the major league level. He is coming off a start where he allowed two runs, both of them earned in 6 1/3. So a good young pitcher going out there to the hill against the Phillies tonight. Hopefully the Phillies can bring it back down to earth a little bit. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show, presented by my man Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut. Jim Hyde Proof's program did a wonderful job. This is a Buzz Sports Entertainment production. My name is Mark Farzy. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.